Hey there, it's time for a behind-the-scenes video as opposed to a text post. You know, I feel like my text posts for these always come off kind of dry. I started the idea for this whole text post thing at a time before I had my current ethos of just like turn on a camera and go when I have something to say about it. So I figured maybe these would be better as just short videos that I'll put up unlisted on YouTube and link them to you guys here. So, Akiyuki Shinbo in the 90s, this two-part video series that just came out. This concept goes all the way back a full year. I started on this like really soon after the Hideaki Anno video, the two-part Hideaki Anno video, because at the time I had just watched Yu Yu Hakusho recently, and I did my video on Yu Yu Hakusho in like October, I think. And after the Anno video, which at the time I really thought was like, this is my best work yet. Like, I was so proud of it. I love going through a creator's whole, like, you know, life and looking at all their work and trying to find the threads of meaning of, like, you know, what they've been trying to say for their whole career and stuff like that. And I've been a huge fan of Akiyuki Shinbo for a long time. He was the first anime director who I ever became a fan of. He was my first favorite. Back in like 2007, I became obsessed with him. And I've always wanted to have a chance to watch everything he's made and to talk about all of his work and to talk about his techniques. So what was part of the inspiration to do this was that these days, Shinbo doesn't necessarily like directly direct the shows that he works on, because ever since he joined Studio Shaft, he's usually credited as a chief director, and people don't really know what that means. And there's been a lot of debate like over what Shinbo actually does in these shows, and it's kind of leading to this mindset where people are just like, well, Shinbo doesn't direct them. And I don't think that's quite right either. Like, there's too much stuff that is totally Shinbo in there for it to just be that he's not involved. So I thought, well, if we really want to clear this up, we got to go through his whole career and, like, look at what does he do? What are his trademarks? What are the things that you can expect to see in a Shinbo work that you wouldn't expect to see out of other directors? And the best way to do that is to look at everything he did before joining Shaft. And, you know, after watching Yu Yu Hakusho and seeing how, like, a lot of the best episodes in the series were the Shinbo episodes, I thought, you know, this needs to be brought to light. People need to know about how Shinbo used to be and, like, you know, how he's developed over the years. So I started working on it back then, and it was like I got probably halfway through. I think I was, where's the stopping point? It was before the Yamamoto Yoko OVAs. It was like somewhere between Debutante Detective Corps and Yamamoto Yoko was like where I'd stopped working on it, because it was getting long, and I knew there was a lot I was going to have to watch, and I was going to have to watch all of Yamamoto Yoko TV, which is 26 episodes, and I was like, I don't think a lot of people are going to care about this, and it's going to take a ton of effort. This was before I had Devu full-time, and if Devu wanted to edit this, he was going to have seen all of Yu Yu Hakusho. Which at the time was like, I'm not going to ask him to watch 112 episodes of a show, you know, to work on this, and it'll hold him up for all this time. Well, so I didn't end up finishing it, and I had that and another project that I may or may not end up, bringing back out that I was working on at the time. Both of them got canceled, and then I went to work on the Asterisk War series, like once I came up with that concept, and then that just became all I was working on. You know, like once I had that, it was like, okay, this is the thing now. So yeah, I just put all my effort into that, and then, you know, once Devu started working for me full time, it just so happened that he ended up watching all of Yu Yu Hakusho. Him and his brother just decided it would be a fun thing to do. So they watched all 112 episodes, and then it was like, well, now that you've done that, you've already watched most of what we need for this Shinbo video. And he was moving in with me, which would make it a lot easier for me to, like, tell him specific little details. Because the way me and Devu used to work is, like, you know, I'd just kind of send him a script in audio, and he would just do it. You know, like, I would give some suggestions where needed, and he might ask me a few questions about, like, examples for stuff, but there was not a whole lot of communication. And I was worried with something like the Shinbo video that there's so many specific things that I'm referencing that, like, you know, if I'm not there to tell him exactly what we need, then it could be a problem. Not that we had to communicate a whole ton more than usual, but it was definitely helpful that we could be there, and that, you know, it didn't have to be that if he messed one thing up, he has to totally re-upload and re-render the file, which is something that we used to have to do. Like with Shinbo in the 90s Part 2, we had to, make major changes several times, so that would have been a huge problem if we had to re-upload it every single time that it had an issue. So it was very cool that we got to finally do that now. We sat down and we watched most of the rest of the shows together. I was like, this will make it easier for both of us to have seen it all. We can take notes while we're watching, and then I'll finish writing the post. So that's what we did. It went very smoothly, all things considered. And Devu, who edits unbelievably fast, was able to get all that footage compiled in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, any time, like, he was beating himself up over the fact that he took longer on the videos than he should have, but it's not that he took longer editing it, it's that he was procrastinating and doing other things in between, whereas the actual editing goes crazy fast with him. So, it was pretty cool, because for me, it would have been too much of a hassle. Like, editing all that footage together, finding all of it, compiling all of it, would have been enough of a hassle that I wouldn't have been sure if it was worth it to finish this video, but now we have, and now that there's been a pretty good response to it, it's not that they've got a ton of views, but people do seem to really appreciate the effort, and I am even more interested in Shinbo in the 2000s, because Shinbo in the 90s, it's fun to see all his techniques and stuff, but Shinbo in the 2000s is where the detective work comes in, of figuring out what exactly he's doing on these shows and what other people are doing, what everyone at Shaft is contributing. That's the real part I want to get to the heart of. So I have already planned out what Shinbo in the 2000s and the future of that project is going to be. I don't want to get into too many details at risk of it not happening, but I've built a fucking huge spreadsheet, the biggest spreadsheet in the known universe. You've probably heard me talk about it on one of my other vlogs. So yeah, that's sort of the behind the scenes, and eventually you will get to see us commentate over it in the future. So let me know if you think video is a better format for these than text was. I know you guys know me for video anyway, so you're probably a little more excited about it this way, but who knows. Thanks.